Amen. Good morning, Soma City Church. It is so good to be here. Man, I missed you guys. I've missed you guys so much. I miss being here, worshiping with you. I miss teaching here. I miss David. I miss your laugh, man. I've been preaching at One Hope, and they are amazing people. You're going to love their community when you meet them, but nobody laughs like David there. Like, I don't have that laugh. I miss it. Dave Lenz, I miss you getting up in the middle of my sermon, distracting everybody, walking across the camera. Tom, I miss seeing you back there with the glasses on your nose. I love it. You're just going sitting back there doing the slides thing. That's Jim. I miss making fun of how old you are, Jim. A lot of old people at One Hope, but I don't know them that well, so. I miss the camera crew freaking out when I, do stuff I'm not supposed to do. You know, they're like, no, you didn't tell us that. I missed you guys so much, and it is so good to be back here today. Those of you who are like, what is he talking about? You don't even know that I've been gone for a month because you've been skipping church. I don't miss you. Just kidding. I miss you even though you're not as spiritual as the rest of us who never skip church. That's what I'm saying. I'm only kidding. Calm down. Man, I miss you all. I'm so excited this morning because I get to tell you my favorite stories in the Bible. I'm so excited this morning because we get to talk about the story of a group of men who played a critical role in one of the most pivotal moments in all of the Hebrew Scriptures. I'm so excited this morning because we get to tell the story of a group of men who were so famous, thousands of years later, we name our kids after them. Right? I'm so excited this morning because we get to talk about the story of Shammua and his friends. Anybody remember Shammua? Anybody? Nobody remembers Shammua? That's really crazy because this is one of my favorite stories in the Bible, true story. I remember when I was a kid in Sunday school in Nigeria, and I'd get in there and sit in the little thing, get your little snack, and the teacher would come up and be like, we're going to talk about Shammua today. I'm like, let's go! Shammua is my favorite. Shammua is everything I always wanted to be as a leader, but apparently I'm the only one because nobody else cares about Shammua. Maybe it's just in the room. I don't know if anybody online, I'm looking right now. Please leave a comment online because this is feeling awkward right now if you know the story of Shammua. And I probably should have led with this, but Shammua was the son of Zakur. Does that help anybody jog any memories? Anybody? Yeah, there it is. I was wondering, but now that you said that, I know nobody. Okay, that's really something. I don't even know where to go from here. My whole sermon was assuming. I'm only kidding. How about this? If you don't know the story of Shammua, I wonder how many of you know the story of Shaphat. Anybody know Shaphat? Igal? Anybody? Anybody naming their kids Palti? Man, what a great Sunday if you're like, man, I don't know a whole lot about the Bible, right? It's a great Sunday if you're one of those people that maybe you're new and you're like, man, every time I come to church, I always feel like I don't understand the words that are coming out of the mouth of the pastor. Well, from the looks of things, nobody in the room understands the words that are coming out of my mouth. Some of you are looking at me like, this is a trick. I know you're tricking us, Pastor. I know. Where's the punchline? It's not a trick. Okay, I promise you I'm not making this up. I promise you I'm not bringing up some random obscure characters in the Bible to trick you. I promise you these are men, as we're about to see, who played a critical role at such a pivotal moment in history. I'm going to show you in a little bit. Before I do, I just want to set up today's text and give you a little bit of a context. Ancient writers tell us that once upon a time, a long time ago in the land far away, God called a man named Moses. You guys know, you guys heard of Moses? Please tell me. Okay, all right, yeah. So I'm about to walk out right now. I am done. I'm going to go pick up a job application at Red Robin because their rolls are bomb. I figured you get free rolls if you work there. I don't know that for sure or not. Someone can confirm that, right? But you guys know Moses, Prince of Egypt, big bushy beard, Charlton Heston if you're older, Prince of Egypt, right? Remember what God told Moses? God said to Moses, hey, Moses, I want you to go set my people free. And Moses went there, and long story short, after a series of miracles that are so crazy and hard to believe, even the people in the story had a hard time believing it, God ended up setting an entire nation free from 400 years of slavery in an event that is often referred to as the Exodus. Right? You guys remember the Exodus? It's so dramatic, Celine Dion singing in the background, water split, they go across it, there shall be miracles. It's incredible. It's an amazing story. I have no idea if DreamWorks is talking about doing a sequel to Prince of Egypt yet, but if they did, it would no doubt include today's story. Right? If there was you guys have seen Prince of Egypt, right? Okay, because I'm just keep going. Okay, all right, hopefully you have. It is so good. It's a little older, but it's really good. If they ever did a sequel to the Prince of Egypt, it would include today's story. Right? If they ever did a sequel to the story most of us are familiar with, no doubt it would include the story of when the nation of Israel that God set free from slavery finally made it to the promised land that God promised to their ancestors. And when they got there, they encountered a plot twist that nobody saw coming, thanks to Shamua, Palti, Igal, and friends. Numbers chapter 13. We're going to read a lot of text today. Is that okay if I read a lot of text today? It's a lot, but I promise it's amazing. I feel like I shouldn't apologize for reading a lot of Bible in church, but, I just want to throw that out there. But I promise you this is really good. Numbers chapter 13, verse 1. Listen to what happens. This is after the nation of Israel. They're at the edge of the promised land. It says, God said to Moses, I want you to send some men to explore the land of Canaan that I'm giving to the Israelites. This was the promised land. This is where God told Moses he was going to take the people he just set free. And then God says this, from each ancestral tribe, send one of its leaders. If you have a Bible with you, a pencil, a pen, I want you to underline the word leader because that's critical context to our conversation today. So God says, Moses, okay, we're there. We're about to go in the promised land. I want you to select a bunch of people. There are 12 tribes in Israel. God says, I want each tribe to have a what? Leader. And then verse 3, God says this. It says, so at Lord's command, Moses sent them out. And it says, all of them were, here's that word again, say it with me, leaders. In other words, the story we're about to read today, don't miss this. It's not about just some average, run-of-the-mill guy that was just a part of the whole thing. No, these men that we're about to talk about were men that had significant influence. And so the whole nation came out. God's like, I need 12 leaders, one from each tribe. And all the tribes got together, and they're like, we need to send our best representatives. And so all of them, Moses says, were leaders. And he says, these were their names. Real quick, before I read their names, you can go back 1 second. I read that earlier today, and I just want to set this up for you. And this is a random question, and you might be like, what does this have to do with the sermon? I promise it'll make sense in a second. But quick random question. Is there anybody, show of hands, if you're sitting here right now and you're thinking to yourself, man, I hope and pray that this is not one of those sermons that Sammy preaches for a long time and we get out of church late, because I have a date I can't miss at 1 p.m. Eastern with the NFL. Anybody with me? Show of hands if you're like, I've been waiting all year for today. Anybody get up this morning and you're like, this is the day that the Lord has made. I will rejoice and be glad at 1 p.m. Eastern, baby. Anybody know what I'm talking about? I mean, this is me raising my hand. It's me letting you know that even I'm worried that I'll preach long today. All right, it's me letting you know we got circle later today at my house, and my wife's here, and I already told the boys, I'm putting the TV on in the background, okay? And if we start talking, I'm going to mute that thing, and I'm not turning it off until my wife, punches me in the face or something. I'm going to hang on for as long as we go. I already know that I'm going to wake up tomorrow morning, anybody, with a huge smile on my face. Don't matter how bad Monday is, I know it's going to get good later that night. When I get home, David knows what I'm talking about, and I hear one of the most beautiful melodies in the history of the world. Da-da-da-da. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Da-da-da-da-da. Anybody? Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Da-da-da-da-da. Da-da. Y'all left me hanging there, man. I was hoping one person. Come on, Craig. Adam, anybody? Nothing? You guys are sinking in your chair. All right? You know what I love about the NFL, and this happens in college ball too, if you're like college football fans, same difference. But you know what I love? One of my favorite parts about the game is the part in the game where it's before the game starts, and they announce the players. Anybody know what I'm talking about? And the players are coming out of the tunnel, and they slap their hand on the thing, and they come out and go through the little, paper thing, and there's fireworks shooting everywhere, and cheerleaders going crazy, the fans are going crazy, and the players come on the field, and they do some kind of weird dance flex thing, and the whole place is so electric. And then the players are bumping their heads on each other, giving each other concussions before the game. And I'm like, I always watch that. I'm like, I've always wanted to be a part of that moment, except for that part. I want to come out the tunnel and go, yeah, and then, ow, that hurts. Like, can we just not do that part? It says that Moses chose 12 leaders. The writer says these are their names. This may just be my crazy, I don't know, African weird imagination, but I'd like to think that in this moment, when Moses is about to announce these 12 leaders, it was a little bit like the players coming out of the tunnel. Right? I'd like to think that this moment was electric. Just think about this. They're at the promised land, and they brought the whole nation, and now we're gonna announce the name of the tribes. These are the leaders. These are the people who are gonna represent the entire nation. And Moses gets on the mic and is like, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is the moment that you've been waiting for. These are the names of your 12 leaders. We've taken all the votes. We've counted and recounted. Check it out. From the tribe of Reuben, with the first pick of the draft, there's my boy Shammua, son of Zechor. And the crowd goes wild. Yay, Shammua! Yeah, it's kind of a hard one to cheer. Shammua, too many vowels. Shammua, Shammua, Shammua. Shammua comes up like, yeah! From the tribe of Simeon, with the second pick, it's your boy Shaphat, son of Hori. From the tribe of Judah, Caleb, son of Jephunneh. From the tribe of Issachar, Igal, son of Joseph. I told you I wasn't making this up. From the tribe of Ephraim, Hosea, son of Nun. From the tribe of Benjamin, wearing the number 89, Palti, son of Rehu. From the tribe of Zebulun, Gaddiel, son of Sodi. From the tribe of Manasseh, tribe of Joseph, Gadi, son of Sushi, or Susi, however you want to say it. From the tribe of Dan, Amiel, son of Gamaliel. From the tribe of Asher, Setur, son of Michael. From the tribe of Naphtali, Nabu, son of Vosphi. From the tribe of Gad, Guel, son of Maki. The crowd goes wild. Yeah. These are our leaders. Verse 16 said, these are the men that Moses sent. Eugene Peterson, in the Message paraphrase, says it this way. He says, these were tried and true leaders. Okay, I know you're like, where is he going with this? I promise this will make sense. I don't want you to miss this context. That these men who are representing the nation of Israel, they had a history. They had a resume. These men were famous and known for being faithful, tried, and true leaders. You guys following? Nation comes out of Egypt. They get to the edge of the promised land. God's like, I want some leaders. They picked 12 of the best leaders they could pick, Shammua and Palti and all of these dudes. And then Moses says this. Listen to what he says in verse 17. It says that Moses sent them to explore the land. Moses is like, all right, here's what we're going to do. Here's the game plan. Let's get in the huddle. Like the coach, we're going to go explore the land. All right, please don't use Apple Maps because it's going to take you some crazy direction, and we don't want that. Google Maps is what we're going with here. You take Google Maps, and it'll take you through Negev and into, okay, I got to throw a bone for the Android users in here, okay? I mock you guys too much, okay? I'm trying my best, all right? Go through Negev, and he's like, I want you to go to the hill country. When you get there, he's like, please, okay, make sure you get enough memory on your phone, and all that stuff. Get iCloud if you have to get it, whatever it is. Because I want pictures. I want to know what this land is like. See what the land is like. Whether the people live there are weak or strong. Are they few or are they many? Moses is like, what kind of land do they live in? Verse 19, is it good or is it bad? What kind of town do they live in? He's like, I want it all, man. Record everything. I want reports. Are the towns walled? Is it fortified? Do they have ring alarm doorbells? They just leave their door wide open like they live in the country? I want to know it all. How is the soil? Is it fertile? Is it poor? Are there trees in it? I was like, I love trees, man. I'm hoping there's some trees and land flowing with milk and honey. Are there trees? Let me know. Do your best, he says, to bring back fruit of the land. 12 guys representing the entire nation. Moses tells them to go in and get an exhaustive, as comprehensive of a report as they could. I'm going to fast forward down to verse 25. Look at your neighbor and say, it's about to get good. Thank you, the guys in the front and nobody else. It is about to get good. Listen. It says, at the end of the 40 days, they returned from exploring. So 40 days, that's how long it took them. They're taking pictures and checking out the fruit of the land, and Shamua and Palti and all these guys. They're 40 days, man. They're scouts. They're exploring. He says, then they came back to Moses and Aaron and the whole Israelite community at Kadesh in the desert of Paran. And then they reported to them what they had seen. Who's they in this chapter? Who's they referring to? Not a trick question. Who's they? The leaders. Shamua, Palti, Igal. They. Listen to what he says in verse 27. This is awesome. He says, they gave Moses this account. So they came back. Moses is like, how was it? And they're like, okay, all right. So, all right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. They're like, Moses like, and? We've been waiting 40 days. Like, yeah, you know. Shamua, you want to go? Shamua's like, not me, man, not it. I know I was picked first, but come on, Palti, you want to do it? And, you know, want to, like, I do. They're like, yeah, I mean, so we went into the land, yeah, and it was like, yeah, it's good. It's been 40 days. I'm glad you went into the land that you sent us to. And they're like, and it does flow with milk and honey. You know, like, okay, that's good. Here's its fruit. We brought some fruit for you guys, you know, that you guys can check it. I mean, we didn't bring enough fruit for everybody, but we tried some. It was good, and you can try it. I mean, you know, like, you ever been in a conversation with someone and you're listening to them talk and you're waiting for the but? Anybody, you know what I'm talking about? I forget what it is. My wife and I were talking about something. She went to something the other day, and I was like, how was it? She's like, it was good. You know, I mean, it was, you know. And the whole time I'm like, waiting. Say it. I know it's coming. You know what I'm talking about? People are like, yeah, you know, but, and you're like, there it is. Moses like, how'd it go? They're like, you know, went to the land. And, I mean, you know, yeah. I mean, full milk, honey, Chick-fil-A sauce everywhere. It's great. You know, it's fruit, you know. But, and everybody's like, oh, here we go. But what? But what happened? What happened? And Shema was like, give me a second. I got to get a drink. I don't know where my drink was. This is crazy. Just give me a second. This is. They're like, everyone's like, but what happened? It's like, can you just hang on a second, okay? Okay. Everybody's like, what? So, man, the people who live there, oh, man. I was like, what? They're powerful. They're real powerful. And the cities is fortified. It's large. And Palti's like, no, it's not large. It's very large. Yeah, I know. It's very large. And oh, man, we saw the descendants. Man, I want to sit down for this. Everybody sit down. The descendants of Enoch were there. People were like, what? And the Amalekites, the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites, and Termites, and all the other ites. All the ites you could think of, they were all there. The Canaanites, they all lived near the sea and along the Jordan. They were all there. I'm being a little dramatic, but I need you to feel the fear. These were the leaders. These were the top 12 draft picks. And they are shaking in their boots. They're like, yeah, it's what God said, but oh, man. This is scary. And I love it because one guy pipes up, verse 30. He says, Caleb, silence the people. He says, we should go up and take possession of the land, for we can do it. I don't know if anyone caught this. I saw this last night. I didn't even watch the game. It was halftime, and Michigan was up 42-0 against Hawaii yesterday because God is good all the time. Right? You know who Caleb is? Caleb is the fan in the stands rooting for Hawaii at halftime, going, we can do it. And everybody's like, no, we can't. Not really. We have 0 points. Caleb's like, I think we can do it. And I love it. The other men, Shamua, Palti, Igal, what they say? Shut up. You shut your face. Right? I mean, they were whispering earlier, like, oh, this is so scary. You know, Caleb's like, hey, guys, can I say something? Like, hey, Caleb, you go ahead. Because I think we can do like, shut it. Now, you sit down right now. It says the men who had gone up, they said this, we can't attack this people. Are you crazy? They're, oh, man, look at us. They're so much stronger than us. You saw it. I saw it. I got pictures on my phone. They are so much stronger than us. We cannot attack them. And then listen to this. Verse 32 says, and then they spread among the Israelites a bad report. The Message paraphrase says this. I love the way it put it. I don't have it on the screen. It says this. It says that they spread scary rumors. Right? They're like, all right, now. So they go, and here's what they said. Okay, you ready? Here's what they said. It's scary. It was real scary. They were like, all right, you ready? You ready? Can you guys hear that? Because this won't work if you can't hear it. The land we explored, it devours those living in it. All the people were of great size. We saw the Nephilim and the Anak, and we seemed like grasshoppers in our own. Okay, I'll stop. David's about to lose his mind there. I'm going to have to get like a paramedic in here. But you get the point. The fear was real. If you're wondering why I made such a big deal at the beginning of this sermon about who these men were, and Shammua and Palti and Igal, the reason I did that is because I want you to understand that, again, these weren't just some average random people that were picked. These were leaders. These were tried and true leaders, and they were scared out of their minds. If you've been around a while, you've probably heard me say this, and I'll say it again. I love that the Bible is so honest about how some of its greatest leaders felt. Anybody with me on that? I love that the Bible doesn't hide how scared some of its leaders are. I love that we read stories like this, and you see 12 of the best leaders, and they're like, they start making stuff up. The land swallows people alive. All right, I love that it's in there because I think maybe for some of us, it gives us permission to be honest about our fears. And to be honest, that we too sometimes get afraid. And I know that we're in church, and those of you who have been in church a while, you know how this works, right? We all come in here and we all pretend like we never get scared. We're people of faith. Can I give you a little pastoral pro tip? You don't get any brownie points for pretending to be brave. I promise you, God's not in heaven like, oh, nearly fooled me. That's great right there. I love that. And I'm hoping at the very least that this story allows us to acknowledge this morning that you can be a leader, a person of influence, a person of faith, and still be scared out of your mind. Shammua was so scared, he started spreading a bad report among the entire nation. And just so you don't think I'm overstating the influence of these 12 men, listen to what happens. It says that night, after they spread the rumors, he says all the members of the community raised their voices and wept. The Message paraphrase, it's not on the screen, says this. It says they stayed up, I think all night, wailing. And then they said this, listen. It says all of them grumbled against Moses and Aaron, and the whole assembly said this. They said this. They said, if only we had died in Egypt or in the wilderness. Why is the Lord bringing us to this land only to let us fall by the sword? Our wives and children will be taken as plunder. Wouldn't it be better for us to just go back to Egypt? Now, don't miss this. Don't miss this. Don't miss how twisted this is. I mean, we're laughing, but don't miss how twisted what's happening here is. Don't miss how twisted it is that they are so afraid of dying, they are wishing that they were dead. How twisted is that? How twisted it is that they're so afraid of being taken as slaves that they're wishing to go back to being slaves. For those of you who are not familiar, Egypt was no joke. Egypt was a place where the nation was in slavery for 400 years. There was no justice. There was no equality in Egypt. There was no life in Egypt. There was just death and suffering. And there they are, wishing that they were going to go back. It's a little bit like that game that some of you play here with your kids, where you make your kids spin around and then you have them run. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Anybody do that with their kids? I think it's like a white people thing. I don't know that for sure. I was going to say that, but I was like, we never did stuff like that in Nigeria. I came here, I was like, what? You make them spin for a long time and then tell them run, and they're like, and they fall down and everybody laughs. I'm like, wow, this is a cruel game. But that's what fear does. Don't miss this. That's what fear does. Fear disorients us. Fear makes us go backwards and we feel like we're going forward. Fear is like spinning in circles and you think you're going one way and you're not sure where you're going. They are so fearful that they are disoriented and they're like, I think we're better off. Let's just go back to Egypt. Going back to death and wishing for death and slavery felt like progress to them. You ever been there? I'm not going to ask for show of hands, but come on now, church. Let's be honest. We have been there. You ever been in a place where you're so disoriented by fear that you think backwards is forwards? You ever been so scared? I'm going to give some specific examples, okay? If you can say amen, say ouch. Maybe just think it in your heart. You ever been so scared of being single that you go back to a relationship that you know is not healthy for you? And that feels like progress? You ever been in a place where you're so scared of facing current reality? And so you medicate on drugs, alcohol, sex, or whatever it is so you don't have to face reality, and that actually feels better to you? You ever been in a place where you're so scared that life is going too good, the shoe's about to drop, and so you sabotage it? I can't tell you how many conversations, this is true. I've sat down in my office with people who I'm like, why are you doing this? And at the end of it, it's like, man, things are just so good, and I just know it's going to get really bad, and I'm so scared, so I'm just going to burn it down and make it just come sooner than later. You ever been in a place where you're so scared of failing, you just stop trying to succeed, and that feels like progress? You ever been in a place where you're so scared of your dreams not coming true, you just stop dreaming altogether? You're so scared of what will happen if you try, you just stop trying. I've been in this one. You ever been in a place where you're so scared of confessing your sin that's killing you to someone else? And so you go back to the sin that you know is killing you. Parents, I know we're not going to say this one out loud, but come on now. You ever been so scared that life is going to knock down your kids? And you start holding your kids back from life, and it feels like progress? Fear disorients us. They said in verse 4, listen to what they said again in verse 4. Verse 4 said, they said to each other, we should choose a leader and go back to Egypt. You know what the scariest part about this verse is? The scariest part is not that they said this out loud. I mean, that's crazy. That they literally thought this was their only option. The best option is we go back to a place that we know is death and suffering and slavery. That's not the scariest part, is that they suggested that out loud. The scariest part to me is that they actually believed it. I mean, think about how crazy that is. They actually believed that going back to Egypt was the best thing for them. They believed it because fear disoriented them. They believed it because fear had lied to them. And they believed the lies of fear, that the worst is yet to come. I don't want to oversimplify today's conversation, but if there's one basic lie that fear will tell you over and over again, I'm guessing for a lot of us in here, the reason we're so anxious and so fearful and having a hard time sleeping at night is because at the end of the day, fear has told us that the worst is yet to come. I don't think we go backwards because we're like, I'm just going to go back to Egypt because that sounds fun. Road trip back to Egypt. No. I think we go back to Egypt because we are so afraid that what's ahead is actually worse than we could ever imagine. And I know that this sounds like an oversimplification. If you don't hear anything else I say this morning, please take this with you. I've been waiting so long to tell you guys this. Your fear is lying to you. I'm going to say that again. And I'm praying that God, because my words are not enough. I'm praying that God will do what only God can do in your heart. I am telling you that your fear is lying to you. And I know that not just because I know it personally. I know it not just because the Bible says it. I know it. Are you ready for this? Because even secular research has shown that our fear lies to us. Did you guys know this? Look it up when you get home. But there is a study. Okay, it's a famous study. Just do a generic Google search and you'll find it. This is not Bible. This is not church. So if you're like, I don't know if I even believe any of these people existed, maybe you can take this one with you. Secular research has shown that 85% of the things that we're afraid of never happen. Do you guys know that? And they took a whole bunch of people and they collected all their worries and all the things that they're afraid is going to happen. And they found that 85% of it never happened. But wait, it gets even crazier than that. Not only did 85% of the things we fear the most never happen. And I don't know how exhaustive this study was. I just know that the study also showed that of the things that did happen, 97% of it, the people looked back and said, I was stronger because of it, and it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be. 85% didn't happen. Of the 15 that happened, 97% of the people said, it wasn't even as bad as I thought. I was thinking about that study in my driving here today, and I wasn't even planning on sharing this story, but I don't know, 15, 16 years ago, I remember getting the call that nobody wants to get. You heard me share this story before. You've been around the while. I remember getting the call that my dad had just passed away, and I thought my world ended. I was like, I don't even know how I'm going to make it another day. It's the worst nightmare. But here I am, 16 years ago, later, and I'm still here. I'm still here. Take that, fear. Right? I mean, take that. I'm still here. Right? What I thought was going to be the worst, I'm still here, and I'm not just surviving, I am thriving. Take that, fear. I'm still here. I promise you, your fear, I don't know what your fear has been telling you, but I promise you, your fear is a big, fat liar, and you need to start calling fear's bluff, okay? I don't know who said this, or I'll give him credit. I heard it a long time ago. I tried to find it on Google. I couldn't find it, but I heard this quote, and it was so good. Listen to what this person said. They said, fear distorts current reality, and it exaggerates future calamity. Anybody been there? Fear will distort your current reality. Fear will take what's real and spin you in circles. And before you know, you're going backwards, then you're going forwards. And fear has a PhD in exaggerating the future calamity. I want to give you a really simple example that's maybe not as extreme as like my dad's situation. I wrote a book about, my first book, I don't remember, 8, 9 years ago. Book about Christmas. It's on Amazon. Shameless plug. Only $2. Getting rich, babe. $2 at a time. I think it may be free, actually. I don't even know. You know what's so crazy is that I don't know what it's like for other people who write, but the hardest part for me about that first book was not writing it. The hardest part was publishing it. Most people would think the hardest part is you got to write a whole book. I'm like, no, that's the easy part. I can do words all day. The hardest part was publishing it. And the reason that was the hardest part is because fear distorted my current reality, and fear exaggerated the calamity. And I know this sounds silly. Do you guys promise not to judge me or make fun of me if I tell you what my fear was telling me? You guys promise not to judge me? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, the rest of you, I'm judging you too for judging me. This is what it was like. I know, a silly example. You're not really an author. Are you kidding me? You really? You want to write a book? All right? And this is what fear was telling me. Come on, I know you're good at speaking. That's kind of good, and you can get up there and talk. But that's not the same thing, bro. It's not the same thing. Okay? A lot of people are good. Are you guys laughing because the image went up there? Okay. There's my punchline. I might as well just go to it. My greatest fear was a 1-star review. I kind of wish you didn't see that image first, because I was setting you up, because I'm telling you, it's not a joke. I spent years, not exaggerating. I got a book on my computer, and I never published it, because fear told me that you put that book out there, somebody's going to hate it, and you're going to get a 1-star review. It's going to be the worst day of your life, and Amazon's going to shut your book down and say you're the worst author ever. You can't ever write again. And sure enough, I go to my computer a couple days after publishing the book, like, all right, 1-star review. Oh, snap. And I clicked it. Amanda. God bless her. I've been praying for her ever since I saw that review. I love the caps. It's so dramatic. Did not like this book. That's so great. I love that she didn't even spend a whole paragraph telling me why. I just need you to know in caps. I didn't like your book, bro. You know what I did when I saw that? True story. I burst out laughing. I did. Like, I was sitting at my desk, and there's David distracting again. I told you it's going to happen. It's like clockwork. I'm kidding, bro. I'm kidding. Take care of your kids. You're a good father. Give him a hand, everybody. Just going to bring more attention to you. Give him a hand. Look at him. There you go. Okay, that's a little too much. Come on. No, I laughed. And the reason I laughed is because I didn't believe that I let fear of Amanda's comment hold me back for so long. I laughed because I didn't believe that I let the voice of fear talk me out of something God was calling me to do. You want to know why you don't know who Shamua is, or Igal, or Shaphat, or Palti? The reason you don't know who those people are is not because they weren't special, or because they weren't called by God, or because they weren't gifted. Ladies and gentlemen, the reason you don't know who those people are is because they let the voice of fear rob them of an opportunity to play a part in the story of God. Anybody ever heard of Joshua? Show of hands. Here we go. Anybody ever heard of Caleb? Anybody named Caleb in the house? There you go. Don't miss this. This is huge. Joshua and Caleb were not more special than Shemua. Okay, they weren't like, they're the 12 and these are the 2. No, it was just Joshua and Caleb and Shemua and Palti and Igal and everybody else. Listen to what set them apart. There was 12 people. 2 of them were set apart, and here's why. Listen to what it says in verse 6. It says this. It says, then Moses after all the people were grumbling, Moses and Aaron fell face down in front of the whole Israelite assembly gathered. Then it says, Joshua, son of Nun, and Caleb, son of Jephunneh, who were among the 12 who explored the land, tore their clothes. And they said to the entire assembly, same thing that the other guys first said, the land we passed through and explored, it's really good. And then verse 8, they said, if the Lord is pleased with us, he will lead us into the land. It's a land flowing with milk and honey, and God will give it to us. He'll give it to us, guys. He'll give it to us. Just don't rebel against God. Guys, come on. Let's not rebel. Don't be, I know the people are lost. Don't be afraid of the people because we're going to devour them. Their protection is gone. The Lord is with us. Don't be afraid. Notice that at no point in here, in Joshua and Caleb's pitch, did they say there are no giants. Right? Notice their pitch wasn't, oh, no, these guys are lying to y'all. Everybody there is a snooze fest, man. Those guys are weak. We can take them down in our sleep. There are no giants. There are no armies. Everybody just left their doors open. It's going to be real easy. Notice at no point did they say that. That's not their pitch. And I'm going to be the pastor in your life to tell you, even though you don't want to hear it, that there are giants in the land. And there are things to be afraid of. And there will be trouble. Growing up in church, I hated it whenever pastor said stuff like that because I was just hoping that I could get a free ride. But nobody gets a free ride. And so Joshua and Caleb aren't going, there's nothing to be afraid about. In fact, plot twist, Joshua and Caleb, in this moment, they're saying, don't be afraid. Guess what? They were afraid. Parents, you ever like, my daughter, I think it was Nora, a couple years ago, found a snake in our yard, and she just freaked out. She's like, Daddy, go get it. And I grabbed the shovel, and I'm like, oh, don't be scared. Oh, okay, oh, no. I'm like, baby, you want to go? You know? You ever tell someone not to be afraid, but you're kind of afraid? Can I show you a verse that's going to feel like it contradicts what? So Joshua and Caleb are saying, don't be afraid. And we read that. We think they're going, don't be afraid. We've got this. No. Listen to a verse. It's going to feel like it contradicts this verse, but it doesn't. Listen to what God said to Joshua. Joshua now, Moses passed away. Joshua is about to lead the people into the promised land, to go take the land. And listen to what God says in Joshua 1:9. Most of you know this verse. God said this to Joshua right before he went in. Have I not commanded you? We talked about this, Joshua. Be strong. Be courageous. Don't be afraid. Don't be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. Question. Why would God tell Joshua not to be afraid? It's not a rhetorical question. Anybody help me out here? It's not a trick question either. Why? Because he was afraid. Right? So which one is it? Numbers chapter 13. He's like, come on, guys. Don't be afraid, man. Come on. And then Joshua 9 is like, oh, God's like, I told you, man, don't be discouraged. Don't be afraid. See, what set Joshua and Caleb apart from his friends is not that they weren't afraid. Oh, they were afraid. You read the Bible, and almost all of those guys in there were afraid. You've probably heard this before. 365 or so times in the Bible, God tells people to not be afraid. Why does God do that? Because they were always afraid. Joshua and Caleb were afraid. The difference between Joshua and Caleb and his friends was not the absence of fear. The difference was the presence of God. Can I tell you something that's counterintuitive? The antidote to our fear is not the absence of fear, but an awareness of the presence of God. Let me say that again. The antidote, I don't know what you're afraid of. We're all afraid, but the antidote is not absence of fear. I used to think that God only used people after they get rid of the fear. Anybody, you're like, I'm afraid, so God's not going to use me. That's not the case. The people that God used in the Bible to do amazing things, God didn't use them because they didn't have fear. The difference between Joshua and Caleb and everyone else is that they had an awareness of the presence of God. The difference is that Joshua and Caleb were convinced that even though the giants were real, the presence of God trumped whatever giants were ahead of them. The difference is both of these guys were persuaded that their God was more real than their fear. The difference between Joshua and Caleb and everybody else is that they believed that their God was bigger, and not only was their God bigger, but they believed that their God was with them. Can we go back, Tom, to that verse again real quick in verse 9? I don't know if you caught this, but listen to what he says. The other one right before that in Numbers chapter 14. Listen to what his pitch is at the very end. What does he say right before he says, don't be afraid? The Lord is what? With us. That was it. That was the pitch. The pitch wasn't we're stronger and we're better and we can do it. No, the pitch is like, man, God is with us. And you look through Scripture and you see that same thread. It's interesting. I don't know if you caught it again in Joshua 1:9 when God told Joshua not to be afraid. What did God say to him? I'll be with you, right? If you know the story of Moses, when God called Moses and Moses didn't want to go because he was afraid, what did God tell Moses? God says, I will be with you. What did David say in Psalm 23? Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil because you are with me. The antidote to our fear is the presence of God. It's an awareness that we are not alone. The Apostle Paul says later, if God is for us, who can be against us? He who is in us is greater than he who is in the world. I wonder what would be different in our lives if we had a heightened sense of the awareness of God. I wonder how different your life would be if you walk out here today just knowing that the sovereign God, the creator of the universe, who spoke everything into existence, is not only for you, but he is actually with you. Fam, I'm telling you, there's so many things in the Bible, even in this story, that I'm like, I hope nobody asks me about that because that's kind of weird and uncomfortable. I can't answer it. I don't really know. But my hope and my comfort is that Jesus is with me. And I'm not trying to undermine your fear or your anxiety or the giants in your life, because they very well might be real and they might be large and they might be big. But I've just come here today to remind you that Jesus is bigger than your fear, and Jesus is bigger than the giants in your life, and Jesus is bigger than whatever worst case scenario fear has sold you. And not only is Jesus bigger, but Jesus is with you. He is with you. And I know that. I know that. Because he promised to never leave you. What did Jesus say to his followers at the very end when they were scared out of their minds? He's like, I will be with you always. And you know how else I know that Jesus is with you? Because you're here today. Everybody just take a deep breath. And say, I'm here. Say to yourself, I'm here. You're here. Your life is a testament to the faithfulness of Jesus. How many of you in here, no need to do a show of hands, that you had a season in your life, come on now, when you thought you weren't going to make it. Fear told you over and over again that you weren't going to make it, and the worst is yet to come, and it's going to get bad, and shoes going to drop, and bad things are going to happen. And some of those bad things did happen, but come on now, you are here. You walked in here today. You sat down. Some of you raised your hand. You sang songs about the faithfulness of Jesus. That's not because of you. That's because of Jesus, who is bigger than your problems, and he is with you, and his favor and his love and his hand is over your life. In this world, Jesus says, you may have trouble, but take heart, for I have overcome the world. I don't know what you're afraid of. I just know that your God is bigger. And so Jesus is saying, man, I want to take you on a journey. And there are scary things ahead. But I'm going to be with you every step of the way. Don't let fear rob you of God's plan for your life. I want to ask you guys a question that I've been dying to ask you guys for so long. What's on the other side of your fear? I know what fear has told you is coming, but I wonder what's on the other side of your fear. Let me put it a different way. What would you do if you were convinced that Jesus was with you and for you and his favor was over your life? What would you do? Who would you be? Where would you go? if you were convinced that the Savior of the world was with you and was never going to leave you, and He was fighting for you, and He's going to work everything for His glory and for your good, ultimately, even when it doesn't make sense, even when you don't feel it, even when you can't see it, He is working for your good and His glory, what would you do? Let me ask it a different way. What is stopping you? Let me ask it a different way. What is fear been whispering in your ears? What's fear been telling you? For days, months, maybe for some of you, decades. I don't know what your answer is to that question. But I want to challenge every single person in here today, myself included, to do two things this week. Can I give you guys a little homework? Can we do a little homework? I love preaching, but I don't like preaching sermons that end after we leave this room. I need a little homework. I'm praying. I need this to spill out to the rest of your lives. I just need you to do one thing. I want you to try and answer that question. What has fear been whispering in your ears? What's fear been telling you? What's fear been robbing you of? And here's the two things I want everybody in here to please, I know it's hard to try and do. Here's the first one, is I want you to tell a friend. And I want you to be as brutally honest as you can be. I want you to pull somebody aside after service later today in your circle. Call somebody, text somebody, and say, I just need to tell you what fear has been telling me for the last decade. There's the voice that's been drowning in my head, and I just need somebody to hear it. What's fear been whispering to you? Tell a friend and be honest. And I promise you, when you do that, I don't want to oversimplify it, but odds are, if you get the right people around you, you will have a Joshua and a Caleb who will speak truth into your life. Odds are you'll have someone who will remind you that you're disoriented right now. Can I tell you something really weird about this? And I'm done, I promise. One of the best byproducts, if you will, of telling people our fears. And I hope this happens for you. I hope that you have the kind of friends that you tell them what fear has been telling you, and they will listen to you, and then they will look you in the eye and say, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my life. Anybody? No, I'm serious. I have a hunch that you have, probably everybody in here has those kind of people in our lives. I have a hunch that if you say out loud the things that fear has been telling you, that you believe about yourself, that you're worthless and God will never use you and you're disqualified and you're blah, 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 and nobody likes you and nobody sees you and you're going to die lonely and blah. I have a feeling that you say that out loud, people around you will go, you shut your mouth. That is the dumbest lie I've ever heard in my life. And you're going to say, thank you. Can I have a hug now? Tell a friend. One of the fastest way to shut down the lies of the enemy is to just say it out loud. And then the second thing, you probably saw this coming, is just tell God. Tell Jesus. He already knows, by the way. He's not like, whoa, didn't see that coming. Surprise, woo. But you tell him. Because in telling him, we're made more aware of his presence. 1 Peter 5:7 says this. It says, cast your burdens, cast your anxieties on Jesus, for he cares for you. We're going to sing in a minute. But before we do, I just want to give you guys a couple minutes to do those two things. And I give you permission. If you have to, pull out your phone. If you have to text somebody, pull somebody aside, do it now. At the very least, I want to invite all of us to have this conversation with God. Can we just take a few minutes? Can you just vocalize some of your fears? What fear has been whispering in your ears? Can you just say it to God? Just say, God, I just need you to know this scares me. I need you to know what fear has been telling me. I'm going to take a moment to do that. And if for some reason you're in the room and maybe your fear has kept you from a friendship with Jesus and you're like, man, I don't know, Jesus, God, I'm just so scared. I don't know if I believe all this stuff. And I want to invite you to tell God even that. God's not intimidated by our fears. He tells us to cast our burdens on him. The prayer we ask everybody to pray who is new to friendship with Jesus is, Jesus, I believe and I give you my life. If you've never prayed that prayer, if you don't have a friendship with Jesus, I invite you to pray that prayer. Jesus, I believe and I give you my life. Everybody else who has a friendship with Jesus, I just invite you to take just a minute to tell somebody, at the very least tell God, what fear has been whispering in your ears.